I was forced to be exposed for 2 weeks as punishment. In high school, I dated a guy that my family didn't approve of. My parents would demand that I break up with him, and I would always tell them to F off. After a week of constant arguing, my dad finally said that he would take action. I didn't know what he meant at the time, but the next day he had my brothers help him gather my clothes in garbage bags. When I got home and saw all of my clothes in a bag, I thought I was going to be kicked out of my house. Instead, my dad told me to hand him the clothes I was wearing. I thought he was joking at first, but he said that if I didn't do what he said, he, along with my brothers, would expose me right there. I cried as I got exposed down to my socks and underwear in front of my dad. Then he told me to hand him the rest of what I was wearing. I couldn't believe this was happening, but I didn't want to make this situation any worse. Now exposed and crying, I stood in my room as my dad and brothers carried my clothes to the backyard, presumably to the garage. Then I was called downstairs to dinner. I expected some sympathy from my mom and grandma, but I could tell by the way they looked at me as I entered the dining room that I wouldn't receive any. They said that I was bringing shame to the family, and that I wouldn't receive my clothes back until they were convinced I had learned my lesson. They said that if I wanted to do anything outside, I'd have to do it exposed, so naturally, I didn't. This lasted 2 weeks and I was taunted and teased every day. I wasn't allowed outside, which suited me seeing that I was embarrassed being exposed inside. I still had to do all the cooking and cleaning, even more so now that I was off school courtesy of a sick note from my mom. My brothers would taunt and tease me every day, and even made me show them my parts. If I told on them, they said they would just lie and that our parents would believe them over me, and that they would punish me worse. I knew that they were right, and that things would get much worse for me if I told on them. I wasn't even allowed clothes when family came over. My parents told everyone about my punishment and why I was being punished, and they all agreed I deserved it. My older cousins joined my brothers in taunting me and making me show them parts of me too. One of them was dared into kissing me, but thankfully he didn't. Finally, after 2 weeks, I told them that I would break up with my boyfriend. I was given back my clothes and allowed to go back to school, but there was an awkward silence throughout my house for a while after my punishment was over. It still affects me to this day. Every time I see any of my brothers, they make a joke about it. At first I told them that I didn't want to talk about it, but as none of them have stopped joking at my expense, I quit seeing or talking to them, as well as my parents. My family are the only people who know about what happened. The thought of any of them, whether it'd be my brothers or cousins or parents, telling people I've never met about what was done to me, has perturbed me enough that I just had to confess on here, so I could have some sense of control over myself after having had all of this hang over me. For anyone who has read this without judging me, thank you.